The throne room of the Varelian Empire was a cathedral of steel and light. Towers of metal arched over vast crystal floors, reflecting the pale blue glow of the nebula outside. The walls were adorned with banners of victories long past, each one a story of power, honor, and glory. But today none of that mattered. The grand hall was silent, heavy with grief. King Terran Var sat upon his throne, a massive structure of black alloy and etched silver. Normally, his presence alone commanded respect from even the boldest of generals and the fiercest of alien warriors. But today he seemed small, shrunken in sorrow. His hands gripped the arms of the throne as if holding himself together against the storm inside him. His eyes, normally sharp and calculating, were dull, fixed on the empty space where his daughter should have been. Princess Saralith, his only heir, was gone. The siege of Tarka's Rift had claimed her fleet, or so the report said. Not a single ship had returned. Not a single voice had been heard. The stars themselves seemed to mourn with him. Impossible, he muttered, his voice a low growl. Saralith cannot be gone. She is the daughter of the Varelians. She is strong. She is... He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Rage replaced sorrow, sharp and dangerous. Bring me the council. Moments later, the council of generals, advisors, and strategists assembled before him. Their faces were a mix of fear and respect, for King Terran's grief was close to a volcano ready to erupt. Your Majesty, began General Kryn, his segmented wings folding nervously. The reports from Tarka's Rift are clear. The fleet was overwhelmed by the Geran Legion. All units destroyed. Survivors? None. None? The king's voice shook, louder than intended. Not one? Are you telling me that my daughter, the Princess of Varelia, faced the enemy alone and was wiped from the stars? The generals bowed, heads low. That is what we have been told, Your Majesty. King Terran's claws clenched the arms of his throne. The crystal beneath his grip cracked slightly, a soft reminder of his inner fury. He rose, his massive form casting a shadow that stretched across the council. Then I will have vengeance. Every ship of the Geran Legion will burn. Every planet under their control will tremble at our wrath. Send the fleets. Send the hunters. Send every weapon we possess. Yes, Your Majesty, the council chorused, though their voices were trembling. But even as the orders left his lips, a part of him whispered a different truth. He had been a father before a king. He had trained Saralith personally in the arts of war, strategy, and survival. She was no ordinary princess. She had outmaneuvered some of the Empire's best pilots in practice battles. She was clever, fearless, and strong. And she was gone. Or was she? He closed his eyes and remembered her face, the way her silver hair shimmered under the sun of their home planet, the way her eyes gleamed with curiosity and determination. He remembered the last message she had sent before the battle. Father, fear not. I will make you proud. Terran Var's jaw tightened. His daughter had always believed in him, and now it was his turn to believe in her. Meanwhile, on the edge of the Tarka's Rift, far beyond the sight of Varelian sensors, a lone human ship drifted silently among the wreckage. Lieutenant Ryan Hale, a human explorer from Earth's Exploration Corps, floated in zero gravity, repairing minor damages to his craft. His ship had been hit during the chaos of the battle, stranding him on the edge of this alien war zone. Ryan swore under his breath as he adjusted a panel, sparks flying dangerously close to his gloves. Of course, he muttered. When everything else goes wrong, why shouldn't the life support system go too? He glanced at the wreckage field surrounding him. Twisted metal, broken ships, and floating debris reflected the faint light of a dying star. The battlefield told a story of destruction and despair, and yet among the ruins a faint signal blinked. Something alive, something not human. Curiosity mixed with caution. Ryan knew he could ignore it and survive, but his instincts told him otherwise. He suited up, checked his oxygen levels, and carefully maneuvered toward the source. What he found changed everything. Half buried under the shattered hull of a Varelian fighter, a figure lay motionless. Her silver hair floated in zero gravity, drifting like a halo of light. Her armor was torn and her breathing shallow. She was alive, but barely. Ryan's heart raced. He had trained for emergency rescues on Earth, but this was something entirely new. He pulled his toolkit closer, working quickly to stabilize her condition. Using a combination of human medical devices and improvised field tools, he applied pressure, stopped bleeding, and finally managed to get her to respond. Her eyes fluttered open. Purple, glowing faintly in the dim light of the nebula, filled with confusion and fear. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Ryan raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "Easy," he said in his calmest voice. "You're safe now. I'm not going to hurt you." The alien girl's gaze narrowed. "Human," she said, voice weak but filled with suspicion. "Why are you here?" "I could ask you the same thing," Ryan replied. "But right now we need to get you out of here before this field tears you apart." For hours he worked tirelessly, carefully moving her into his shuttle and sealing the airlocks. The human and the alien, from two completely different worlds, were now bound together by fate and survival. Neither fully trusted the other, but both understood the unspoken truth. Without cooperation, neither would live to see the stars again. As the shuttle drifted farther from the wreckage, Ryan finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. "I've saved a lot of people before," he said quietly, more to himself than to her. "But never anyone like you." The alien girl, Princess Saralith, studied him. She expected enemies, raiders, perhaps even scavengers ready to kill. Instead, she found a human who risked himself to save her, who treated her life as precious rather than a trophy. Something stirred within her, a sense of hope she hadn't felt in weeks. In the distance, unknowing of the miracle unfolding, King Terran Var continued to prepare for war. The Varelian Empire gathered fleets, strategized attacks, and mourned the loss of its princess. The galaxy believed her dead. But among the stars, drifting silently, a human pilot and an alien princess began a journey that would defy expectations, challenge loyalties, and eventually bring one of the most feared kings in the galaxy to a choice no ruler had ever faced before: to embrace humanity as an ally, not an enemy. The first steps were small: simple conversations, careful movement in zero gravity, shared meals of ration packs. Ryan taught her how to operate the shuttle's emergency systems. Saralith, in turn, showed him the basics of Varelian survival tactics, how to read the nebula's currents, and how to detect dangers invisible to human sensors. Slowly, the barriers between them melted. Mutual respect grew into trust. Trust grew into a bond neither had expected. And, while neither said it aloud, both understood something fundamental. The galaxy had just begun to notice the power of a human's courage and a Varelian's resilience, and together, the stars stretched endlessly before them. Cold and unfeeling, but within the tiny shuttle, hope glimmered like a distant sun. Somewhere out there, in a throne room of steel and light, a father mourned. He did not yet know that the story of his daughter was far from over, and that the human beside her would change the galaxy in ways no one could have imagined. The shuttle drifted through the endless black of Tarka's rift, surrounded by stars that seemed indifferent to the lives clinging to survival inside the small craft. Outside, jagged fragments of destroyed ships floated in silence. Occasionally, the glow of distant explosions marked the paths of surviving drones, remnants of the battle long over. Inside the shuttle, Princess Saralith lay on a makeshift cot. Her breathing had steadied, but her body still bore the marks of the siege. Ryan Hale checked the life support monitors repeatedly, as if confirming that she was really there, really alive. "Your vitals are stable," he said for the 5th time, his voice calm but firm. "You're going to be fine. Just rest a little longer." Saralith lifted a tired gaze to him, her eyes still wary. "You care for my safety?" she said quietly, disbelief still hidden in her words. "Why?" Ryan shrugged, trying to hide the tension in his own shoulders. "Because I don't leave people behind. Doesn't matter what planet they're from." The alien princess frowned. She had been trained to distrust everyone outside her race. Humans were rare in her region of space, and most Varelians regarded them as unpredictable at best, dangerous at worst. Yet this one, he had risked his life for her, not for glory, not for reward, simply because he could not turn away. That night, as the shuttle glided silently among floating debris, Saralith tried to recall the last moments before the ambush. Her fleet had been ambushed by the Jaran Legion, merciless alien marauders who preyed on smaller civilizations. She had fought valiantly, but their numbers had been overwhelming. She had watched countless ships explode, her crew fall one by one. Then her own ship had been torn apart, and then a blur of metal and fire. A human ship had appeared seemingly from nowhere and rescued her. She had expected death, not salvation. Ryan worked silently at the control panel, keeping the shuttle on course. Even as he worked, his mind raced with thoughts about the galaxy. Humans were explorers by nature, curious and resilient. Yet even he hadn't expected to find a survivor in such a battlefield. He glanced at Saralith, sleeping lightly now, and thought, if she survives, this could change everything. For days they navigated the hazardous nebula together. Asteroids and space storms threatened to crush or tear the shuttle apart. Ryan piloted with precision, using techniques humans had developed through centuries of survival in hostile environments. Saralith, though recovering, assisted where she could, pointing out currents and gravitational shifts invisible to Ryan's sensors. One evening, a massive storm of charged particles erupted ahead of them, glowing like an electric nebula. Ryan's hands tightened on the controls. This is bad. We'll need to navigate through the eye of the storm. Hang on. Saralith moved beside him, steadying herself. Let me help, she said. Her voice had lost some of its earlier suspicion. I know how to read these currents. You can't see the subtle shifts of the particles like we do. Together, human and alien worked in sync. Ryan piloted, Saralith directed, and slowly, carefully, they threaded the shuttle through the storm. Sparks flew inside the cabin as the electrical storm tested their shields, but neither panicked. Finally, they emerged, battered but alive, into the calm of open space. Saralith gave a small, rare smile. You humans, you are fearless in the face of danger. Ryan laughed softly, or maybe just stubborn. Sometimes there isn't another choice. For the next few weeks, they drifted further from the battlefield, scavenging resources from wrecked ships and using Ryan's ingenuity to repair the shuttle. Despite the cramped quarters and constant danger, they found themselves talking. Not just about survival, but about who they were, where they came from, and what they wanted in the galaxy. Saralith told stories of the Varelian Empire, of towering cities built on floating platforms, of fleets that could blot out the stars, of traditions older than most civilizations. She spoke of her training, her hopes to lead her people, and the weight of responsibility she carried even as a young princess. Ryan, in turn, shared stories of Earth and humanity, of people who had lived in fear of extinction yet survived against impossible odds, of explorers who sailed oceans and skies, and of humans who believed that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, life was worth saving. Despite the differences in their species, a mutual respect grew. Saralith began to trust his instincts, his courage, and his compassion. Ryan began to see that her strength was not just physical, but the will to survive, the sharpness of her mind, and the courage to lead even when hope seemed lost. One morning, a new threat appeared. A small fleet of scavenger drones, remnants of the Jaran Legion, tracked their movements. They were fast, aggressive, and armed. Ryan quickly assessed the situation. We can't outrun them forever. We'll need to fight. Saralith's eyes narrowed. Then we fight together. In the cramped shuttle, they prepared for the skirmish. Ryan armed the shuttle's defensive lasers, while Saralith activated emergency shields and calculated angles for evasive maneuvers. When the drones attacked, it was a dance of skill, strategy, and courage. Ryan piloted through tight turns, dodging blasts and weaving among debris, while Saralith targeted weak points in the drone's armor. Hours passed, and slowly, they eliminated the threat. Both were exhausted but victorious. In that moment, Saralith realized something profound. This human was not just a survivor. He was capable of heroism, the likes of which she had never seen, and his actions could inspire even the most battle-hardened Varelian warriors. As they rested afterward, floating among the wreckage of destroyed drones, Saralith finally spoke openly. I underestimated humans, she admitted, her voice soft but sincere. I thought your kind was fragile, limited. But you endure. You persist. You surprise me. Ryan shrugged, a tired but genuine smile on his face. We do what we have to. Survival isn't about strength alone. It's about refusing to give up. And sometimes it's about helping someone else survive too. Saralith studied him, realizing that this human had saved her not once, but countless times in ways no one else could. She felt a mix of gratitude, admiration, and something deeper she could not yet name. For the first time in weeks, the fear and despair that had haunted her began to fade. Their journey continued through the void, but each day brought new challenges. Radiation fields, Collapsing star systems and remnants of war threatened to end their journey at any moment. Yet each time they overcame. Each time they learned more about each other. At night, Ryan would sometimes look at the stars and think about Earth. He missed it. The blue oceans, green forests, the feel of wind against his face. But he also realized that wherever he was making a difference. Saving Saralith was not just survival. It was a chance to prove what humans could do. That even in the face of alien empires and cosmic war, humanity had value, courage, and heart. Saralith, lying across from him in the small shuttle cabin, reflected on what she had seen. Her father, the king, would be preparing for war, assuming she was dead, yet she was alive because of a human. Perhaps the galaxy had underestimated humans just as she had, and perhaps together, they could change the fate of empires. Finally, as they approached a safe zone on the edge of Varelian space, Saralith stood at the viewport, looking out at the stars. "Ryan," she said, her voice firm, "when we return, my father, he will not understand. He will see you as an enemy. He may even try to harm you." Ryan looked at her, unshaken. "Then we make him understand. Actions speak louder than words. You survived because I refused to leave you. And if we survive this journey, he will see that humans are not just warriors or explorers. We are allies." Saralith nodded, a newfound determination lighting her eyes. The journey had taught her many things. The power of trust, the value of courage, and the surprising strength of humans. And now, as Varelian space stretched before them, she knew that returning home would not be the end. It would be the beginning of a new chapter for both her and the galaxy. For the first time since the siege, hope returned to the princess. She would face her father, she would reclaim her place in the Empire, and beside her would be a human who had proven that even the smallest, most unlikely hero could change the fate of stars. The shuttle hummed quietly as it crossed the edge of Varelian space. Beyond the safety of the void, the Empire's world stretched in perfect order. Vast cities of gleaming metal, fleets patrolling the starways, and satellites glinting like tiny stars of their own. Yet, despite the beauty of home, Saralith's heart was heavy. "Are you ready?" Ryan asked, glancing at her. His human voice carried a mixture of encouragement and caution. Saralith nodded. "I have to be, Father. The Council. They will not understand. They will see you as an intruder." Ryan smirked. "They'll get used to me. Or at least they'll survive the experience." Saralith didn't smile. Instead, she took a deep breath, recalling the lessons of her youth. Diplomacy, strategy, courage. She had survived ambushes, storms, and death itself. She could survive her father's reaction as well. The shuttle approached the Varelian capital. Talaris Prime, its spires reaching high above the clouds, glowing with the energy of the planet's power grids. Patrol ships scanned the skies, their sensors alert for any unauthorized vessel. Saralith keyed in the royal codes she had memorized, a last remnant of her status as heir. The control panel beeped in acknowledgement. The shuttle had clearance, an official recognition that the princess had returned. Yet nothing could prepare them for the reception that awaited. When the shuttle landed, it drew immediate attention. Guards and officials rushed forward, their expressions a mix of confusion and alarm. Whispers spread quickly through the palace grounds. "The princess is alive?" "Impossible." "Who is that human with her?" Saralith stepped forward, her posture regal despite the exhaustion. Ryan followed closely, silent and steady, his human form contrasting sharply with the tall armored Varelians surrounding them. A herald cried out, "By order of the king, all must stand clear." The guards parted as King Terran Var emerged from the palace, his armor gleaming in the sunlight. His eyes widened in disbelief. "Saralith!" His voice was a mixture of rage, relief, and confusion. He strode forward, claws extended as if to embrace, strike, or demand answers. The lines between emotions blurred. Saralith lowered her gaze briefly, then spoke. "Father, I am alive." The king stopped. Silence fell. Even the bustling palace grounds seemed to hold its breath. He studied his daughter, noting her injuries, her calm demeanor, and the human beside her. Rage flared in his eyes, but so did something else, relief, tempered by disbelief. And this human... "Who is he?" Terran's voice was sharp, commanding, yet careful. Saralith turned slowly to Ryan. "He saved me. He brought me home." A murmur ran through the assembly. Council members exchanged worried glances. Humans were respected, feared even, but they were outsiders, unpredictable and untested in the full might of Varelian politics. Some whispered that a human in the royal presence was an insult, or a threat. Terran's gaze snapped to Ryan. The human stood tall, shoulders squared, hands visible and empty, his expression calm but unwavering. There was a strange aura of confidence about him, a presence that demanded recognition. "You endangered yourself," Terran growled, his voice shaking. "For my daughter?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, because she was alive. Because I didn't leave her. Because even the smallest chance to save a life matters." The king's claws flexed as he stared at him. No human had ever spoken to him this way, with such quiet courage. The council whispered nervously. Some bowed slightly, others looked on with suspicion. Saralith stepped forward, her voice firm. "Father, I survived because of him. I owe my life to Ryan. He is not an enemy." The king's eyes softened slightly, though his posture remained tense. He turned away for a moment, hiding a flicker of uncertainty. He walked to the edge of the landing platform, staring out at the horizon. Memories of his daughter's fleet flashed before him. Burning ships, screaming crews, and the hopelessness he had felt believing she was lost. Now, she was here, alive. And beside her, a human who had defied the stars themselves to bring her home. Terran took a deep breath. "If what you say is true, human, you have done what no Varelian has done. You survived where my fleets failed, and you protected my daughter." Ryan nodded. "I did what anyone would, Your Majesty. I didn't give up. And I still won't," the council stirred. Some bowed, some whispered, but the tension remained. King Terran returned his gaze to Ryan. "Then you will answer questions. You will tell me how you found my daughter, how you survived, and why I should not consider you a threat to the Empire." Ryan inclined his head. "I will answer everything. But know this, I did not come as an intruder. I came because I could not ignore life in danger. That is the strength of humanity." The king's eyes narrowed. Strength. The word struck a chord. He had underestimated humans before, thinking them fragile and incapable of surviving the galaxy's harsh trials. Yet this human had proven otherwise. Perhaps there was more to them than he had believed. Saralith stepped forward, placing a hand lightly on Ryan's shoulder. "Father, he speaks truth. He is brave, loyal, and capable. Without him, I would not be here to take my place in the Empire." The king looked at his daughter. The weight of his authority pressed upon him, but beneath it a father's love surged. His claws flexed once more, then relaxed. He took a step closer to Ryan. "You have survived impossible odds," Terran said slowly. "And you have preserved my daughter's life. That is a deed worthy of respect." A silence fell over the landing platform. The council and guards watched, uncertain how the king would proceed. Finally, Terran extended a clawed hand. "You will come with us, human. You will stand beside my daughter in the council chambers. There you will explain yourself fully. Until then, you are under my protection." Ryan's jaw tightened, but he inclined his head. "Yes, Your Majesty." The group moved toward the palace, the vast city stretching endlessly around them. Saralith walked beside Ryan, a silent affirmation of trust. The city itself seemed alive, lights glinting like stars, vehicles speeding along floating roads, and citizens pausing to watch the return of their princess. Rumors of her death had spread, but now hope surged in their hearts. Inside the palace, Saralith was led to her chambers. The rooms were familiar yet strange, filled with relics of her youth and symbols of her heritage. She paused, taking in the familiar sights, her father's portraits, her training weapons, and the banners of her house. Ryan followed, careful not to overstep, yet remaining close enough to be a presence she could rely on. "I've never seen a palace like this," he said quietly. "It's impressive." Saralith smiled faintly. "It is home, but it is also a place of power, politics, and danger. You must be careful here, Ryan. Not everyone will welcome you as I do." Ryan nodded. "I understand. But I also understand one thing. I'm here for you no matter what comes." That night, as the city's lights sparkled like distant stars, Saralith sat at a window overlooking the capital. She thought about the journey, the dangers they had survived, and the human who had changed everything for her. Her father had welcomed her back, but she knew the council would be a different challenge. They would question, doubt, and test Ryan. They would resist the idea of a human standing beside the heir of the Varelian Empire. But she was ready. She had survived the impossible, and now she had an ally unlike any other. Together, human and alien, they could face the Empire, the Council, and even the memory of the battle that had nearly destroyed her. Outside, the stars shone brightly, indifferent to the drama unfolding below. Yet within the palace walls, a quiet revolution began, one that would challenge prejudices, rewrite expectations, and prove that courage and loyalty could come from the most unexpected places. Ryan watched the city from the same window, silent but determined. He didn't fully understand the politics, the traditions, or the power struggles that would greet him tomorrow. But he understood this. He had saved a life, and in doing so, he had earned the chance to prove what humans could do. Not as invaders, not as strangers, but as allies, friends, and, if necessary, protectors of a galaxy on the brink. Saralith turned to him. Tomorrow the council meets. They will question you. They will doubt you. And they may even try to remove you from the palace. Ryan smiled, a quiet, confident grin. Then we'll show them. Actions speak louder than words. For the first time in months, both felt a sense of calm. They had survived the void. They had survived the storm. And now, they were ready to face the next challenge, convincing an empire that the strength of humanity could stand alongside the might of the Varelians. The stars outside seemed to twinkle brighter that night, as if acknowledging the beginning of something extraordinary, a partnership between two species, forged in the crucible of survival, destined to change the galaxy forever. The next morning, the great palace of Varelia buzzed with tension. Word had spread through every corridor, across every tower. The lost princess had returned, and she had brought a human with her. In the High Council chamber, banners of the Empire fluttered under the light of a golden sun. 12 council members sat in a half-circle of steel thrones, each representing one of the great houses of Varelia. They were old, powerful, and proud, and every single one of them watched Ryan Hale with suspicion. At the far end sat King Terran Var, his expression unreadable. Beside him stood Princess Saralith, head held high, her silver hair gleaming under the lights. And at her side, in his simple pilot's uniform and worn armor, stood Ryan, calm, steady, and unflinching under alien stares. The air was thick with unspoken hostility. The first to speak was Counselor Rythar, a tall, thin alien with scales that shimmered faintly like oil. "Your Majesty," he said, his tone formal but cold, "we celebrate the miraculous return of your daughter. But we must ask, why is a human standing beside her in our sacred hall?" A murmur of agreement rippled through the council. Saralith stepped forward before her father could answer. "Because without him I would not be alive," she said. "Lieutenant Ryan Hale of Earth saved my life. He brought me home through dangers even our fleets could not endure." Counselor Vryn, an older woman with sharp blue eyes, sneered slightly. "A human? Saving a Varelian princess? How convenient. Perhaps this is some deception." Ryan's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. He could feel every gaze on him, measuring, judging, doubting. King Terran raised his hand. The murmurs stopped immediately. "You will all hear the full story before judgment," he said. "Saralith, tell them what happened at Tarka's Rift." Saralith began to recount everything. The ambush by the Jaran Legion, the destruction of her fleet, her narrow escape, and how Ryan had found her in the wreckage. She spoke of the storms they survived, the pirates they fought, and the humans' refusal to abandon her no matter how desperate things became. As she spoke, Ryan stood silently beside her, his eyes focused on the floor. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not in a room full of alien royalty. When Saralith finished, silence filled the hall again. Counselor Vryn broke it first. "A touching story, Princess," she said, her voice dripping with doubt. "But words are wind. How do we know this human didn't bring danger with him? What if he is a spy for the Humans Terran Federation?" Ryan finally looked up. His voice was calm but firm. "If I were a spy, I wouldn't have risked my life for your princess. I didn't come here for power or reward. I came because someone needed help. That's what humans do." Counselor Rythar leaned forward. "Help or meddle? Humans are known for both. Your kind interferes, spreads, takes root where it doesn't belong." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Maybe, but sometimes meddling saves lives." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Some counselors frowned, others exchanged uneasy glances. Sarilith turned to her father. "Father, please. Ryan deserves recognition, not suspicion. I have seen his courage. He has faced death countless times to bring me home. There is no deceit in him." King Terran was silent. He looked at his daughter, the pride of his empire, and then at the human who had returned her to him. He could see the truth in her eyes, but he also knew the fear of his council. They saw humanity as unpredictable, too emotional, too dangerous. He rose slowly, his imposing figure drawing every gaze. "Counselors," he said, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "My daughter speaks truth. This human has done what even my admirals could not. For that, he has my respect." A collective gasp spread through the room. No king had ever spoken such words for an outsider. But before the council could react, the chamber doors burst open. A messenger stumbled in, his uniform scorched and torn. "Your Majesty," he cried. "Emergency transmission. Jaren raiders have entered the outer sectors. They are attacking the border colonies." The chamber erupted into chaos. Counselors shouted, guards rushed forward, and the king's command voice boomed above it all. "Summon the fleet. Prepare defenses." Ryan turned to Sarilith. Her face had gone pale. "The Jarans again," she whispered. "They've returned to finish what they started." King Terran's gaze hardened. "Council dismissed. We go to war." Hours later, the palace command center was alive with movement. Holographic maps of the border sectors flickered in the air, showing enemy fleets closing in. The king's admirals reported grim news. The Jarans were faster and stronger than expected. Sarilith stood beside her father, analyzing the data.
"They're moving through the rift paths we used to escape," she said.
"They know our weaknesses." Ryan studied the maps quietly. Something caught his attention. A pattern in the enemy's movements. "They're not attacking randomly," he said. "They're herding your fleets into a trap. If you chase them here," he pointed to a narrow corridor on the map, "they'll ambush you from 3 sides." The nearest admiral frowned. "And how would you know that, human?" Ryan didn't flinch. "Because I've fought pirates like them before. Different galaxy, same tricks. They're using bait tactics. You go in straight, you lose half your fleet before you realize it." The king studied the projection. Slowly, he began to see the pattern Ryan described. "He's right," he said at last. "We'll flank them instead. Redirect squadrons through the secondary path. Prepare ambush positions." Orders flew across the command center. The admirals moved quickly, adjusting formations, rerouting ships. Sarilith looked at Ryan with quiet amazement. His instincts, sharpened by years of surviving in unknown territories, had just saved hundreds of lives. As the battle began across the stars, Ryan stood beside the princess, watching the holographic display. Enemy ships clashed with Varelian fleets in bursts of light. Explosions rippled across the void. It was chaos, but a controlled chaos thanks to the strategy he had suggested. Sarilith gripped the edge of the console. "You saved me once, and now you're saving my people," she said softly. Ryan gave a small, tired smile. "Just doing what humans do best. Surviving and helping others survive too." After hours of fighting, the tide began to turn. The Jaran fleets were outmaneuvered, trapped in their own ambush corridor. Varelian ships, faster and smarter now, pressed the attack. Finally, the enemy retreated into the void. When the battle ended, the command center erupted in cheers. Officers saluted, shouting victory cries. The king stood tall, his voice filled with rare pride. "The enemy is driven back. The border is safe once more." Then his gaze turned to Ryan. "And it was the human's insight that led us to victory." The room fell silent again. Every Varelian officer looked at Ryan with a mixture of respect and surprise. King Terran descended from the command platform and stood before the human. His deep, resonant voice filled the hall. "Ryan, Hail of Earth, you have done what even our finest tacticians failed to see. You saved not only my daughter, but now my people. You have shown the strength and wisdom of humanity." He raised his hand, the ancient sign of Varelian honor. "From this day forth you are no longer an outsider. You stand as knight of the Varelian Empire, guardian of our future." The hall erupted in applause, even from those who had doubted him. Sarilith smiled, eyes bright with pride. Ryan stood speechless for a moment, then bowed slightly. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I'll do my best to be worthy of it." The king placed a clawed hand on his shoulder. "You already are." That night, the palace was filled with celebration. Lights illuminated the towers, Music echoed through the city and the people rejoiced. The lost princess had returned, and with her came a hero, not from their stars but from a distant world called Earth. Ryan stood on a balcony overlooking the glowing skyline. The air was cool, filled with the hum of celebration. Saralith joined him quietly, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "You've changed my world, Ryan," she said softly. "My people feared humans. They saw you as unpredictable, but now they see what I saw from the beginning." Ryan smiled faintly. "I didn't plan any of this. I just wanted to make it home. Funny how things work out." Saralith looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "You are home, Ryan. Not of this world, but part of it now." Below them, the city cheered the name of the human knight, the man who had come from nowhere and changed everything. But far beyond the horizon, deep in the void, the remnants of the Jaran fleet regrouped in the shadows. Their leader, a cold mechanical voice, spoke through static. "The human interferes. He must be eliminated. The Varelians grow strong again. Prepare the next phase. The war was not over. But for now, in the Palace of Light, peace had returned, and the bond between human and alien was stronger than ever." The calm of Varelia was broken by alarms. Red lights flashed across the palace and the city towers, filling the sky with urgent warnings. Scouts reported the impossible. The Jaran Legion had returned, faster, larger, and angrier than before. They were advancing directly on Talaris Prime, the capital itself. King Taran Var stood on the balcony of his throne room, his massive claws gripping the railing. Beside him was Princess Saralith, her silver hair flowing in the wind. And beside her stood Ryan Hale, the human knight whose courage had already earned the respect of the Empire. The king's voice was calm, but each word carried the weight of command. "This is no longer a border skirmish. The Jarans mean to destroy us. Today we fight for Varelia and for survival itself." Ryan glanced at Saralith. "Are your fleets ready?" he asked. She nodded. "They're the finest in the galaxy, but this time they'll face more than numbers. They'll face the rage of a people who've already lost so much." The fleets deployed in formation across the Varelian orbital rings. Ships of all sizes, sleek fighters, massive dreadnoughts, and the king's own flagship, shimmered like a constellation of steel. The Jaran fleet emerged from the nebula, black shadows against the stars, bristling with weapons and intent on annihilation. Ryan moved to the command center on the king's flagship. "They'll try the same ambush as before," he said, pointing to the tactical map. "Straight into the center, hoping we take the bait. But this time we set the trap them." Saralith worked alongside him, directing squadrons with precision. "We've learned from the last battle," she said. "The Jarans won't expect humans to outthink them." Ryan smiled faintly. "They won't. Not unless they've met humans before." The first wave of the enemy arrived, massive cruisers leading swarms of fighters. Lasers streaked across space, illuminating the void with deadly light. Explosions rocked the capital's outer defenses, sending shockwaves through the rings. King Taran's voice boomed over the comms. "Hold your positions. Attack in formation. Protect the civilians." Ryan and Saralith coordinated Varelian squadrons with human ingenuity and Varelian precision. Fighters darted through debris fields, lasers slicing through enemy ships. Ryan piloted a smaller attack craft, weaving through the chaos to target weak points he had identified earlier. A massive Jaran cruiser charged straight for the city's central hub. "If it reaches the capital, millions will die," Saralith shouted. Ryan gritted his teeth. "Not if I can help it." He pushed the craft to its limits, dodging missile barrages and firing precision shots. With a final surge, he hit the cruiser's energy core. It erupted in a cascade of fire and metal, sending debris into the void. Below them, the city held its breath. The citizens watched the sky light up with the dance of destruction and survival. Saralith's fleet adapted quickly to the humans' tactics, turning chaos into opportunity. Hours passed, and the battle raged on. Varelian fleets fought bravely, but the Jarans were relentless, calculating, and unyielding. Ryan coordinated flanking maneuvers, predicted enemy retreats, and personally saved dozens of Varelian ships from destruction. Saralith could not help but marvel at him. His courage was not reckless. It was deliberate, precise, and unwavering. Each time he risked himself, he saved lives. Not just hers. Every life in the fleet depended on him now. At one point, a Jaran dreadnought emerged, larger and more heavily armed than any Ryan had seen. Its weapons tore through several Varelian cruisers. "We can't stop that one with fighters alone," shouted Admiral Kryn. Ryan analyzed the ship. "It has a blind spot on the starboard side. If we can get close enough, we can disable the main cannon." Saralith looked at him, eyes wide. "It's a suicide run." Ryan nodded. "Not if you help me." Together, they led a small strike team directly at the dreadnought. Saralith piloted one craft, Ryan another. Dodging massive energy blasts, they approached the ship's weak point. Ryan fired a precise volley of missiles, striking the cannon with perfect timing. The weapon exploded, sending the dreadnought spinning into the void. The Council and King Terran watched in disbelief. A human had just turned the tide of the battle once again. Even as the enemy retreated, the victory was not complete. More Jaran forces appeared from deeper space. The king realized that strategy alone would not end this. Courage and inspiration were needed, something Ryan had already shown the Empire. King Terran climbed to the balcony of his flagship, his voice echoing through the fleet. "Varelians, today we fight not only for victory but for survival, and with us stands a human, a warrior who has proven that courage knows no species. Stand with him, fight with him, and we shall drive these invaders from our skies forever." The fleets roared in response. The rallying cry ignited a fire across the Empire. Pilots and soldiers who had feared the enemy before now fought with renewed vigor. Even those who doubted humans cheered at the sight of Ryan leading the charge. Ryan glanced at Saralith. "You ready for the final push?" he asked. She nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "Let's end this, together." The final battle began in earnest. Ryan and Saralith led a coordinated strike at the enemy's command ship. Fighter squadrons from the Varelian Empire, under Ryan's guidance, flanked and distracted, while the main forces cut through enemy reinforcements. Missiles streaked across space. Energy beams collided in bursts of color, and explosions lit the stars like a galaxy-wide firework display. Ryan's instincts guided every maneuver, dodging, striking, and predicting the enemy's moves faster than anyone could imagine. Saralith, piloting alongside him, called out enemy positions, shield statuses, and weak points. Their coordination was flawless, a testament to survival, trust, and friendship forged in the void. Finally, they reached the Jaran command ship. Its energy shields shimmered with deadly power. Ryan maneuvered his craft with precision.
"Saralith, now!"
"Hit the core!" Saralith fired her energy cannon, striking the ship's power source. Sparks flew, systems overloaded, and the command ship shuddered. Ryan fired a concentrated volley of missiles. The ship erupted, tearing itself apart in a massive explosion that shook the void. The remaining Jaran forces, seeing their leader destroyed, retreated in chaos. The battle was won. Varelia had survived thanks to courage, strategy, and one human who had refused to give up. In the aftermath, King Terran walked through the wreckage of the battlefield, overseeing the recovery of ships and crews. He approached Ryan and Saralith, his face solemn but proud. "You have done what no one else could," the king said, voice deep and resonant. "You have saved my daughter, my people, and our empire. Ryan Hale, you are no longer just a human. You are a hero of Varelia." Ryan bowed. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what anyone would do for someone who couldn't defend themselves." Terran looked at his daughter. "Saralith, you have returned stronger than before. And you have shown us the value of trust even with those we do not fully understand." Saralith smiled faintly. "We survived together, Father. Humans are not our enemies. They can be our allies." The king nodded. "Then let this day mark a new era. The Varelian Empire will remember the courage of a human knight, and we will honor him forever." A great celebration followed across Varelia. Citizens cheered for the princess, for the empire, and for the human who had changed the course of history. Ryan stood beside Saralith on the balcony of the palace, watching the city glow with pride and relief. "You've done more than survive," Saralith said softly. "You've changed our empire, Ryan. You've shown them what humans are capable of." Ryan smiled, tired but happy. "I didn't do it alone. We did it, together." Below, the people of Varelia celebrated. Above, the stars stretched endlessly, reminding them all of the dangers yet to come, and the opportunities waiting for those brave enough to face them. Ryan looked out into the night sky. Somewhere across the galaxy, humans and aliens alike were watching, learning, and waiting. And for the first time, Varelians and humans alike understood a simple truth. Courage, loyalty, and the refusal to give up could unite worlds, and nothing could stop it. As the celebration continued, King Terran raised a hand to the sky. Let this day be remembered. Let the galaxy know that Varelia stands strong, and let humanity know its allies are welcome among the stars. Sirlith squeezed Ryan's shoulder. Welcome home, Knight of Varelia. Ryan looked at her, and for the first time he realized he wasn't just a visitor in a strange galaxy. He belonged here. And together, human and Varelian, they would face whatever the stars had in store. And they would do it as equals, allies, and heroes. The galaxy had changed forever.